Good Wednesday afternoon to you. It's 4 o'clock time for Sports4CLE. We will talk plenty of Browns a little later in the show. Mac Robinson from 92.3 The Fan will join us, and we begin by talking Browns. Let's take a look. The Browns, we know what home games are, what away games are. We'll find out next week the exact dates. But you see, the home games, in addition to the divisional foes, it'll be the Chargers, Patriots, Saints, Jets, Buccaneers. And away, in addition to the AFC North teams, Falcons, Ravens, Bills, Panthers, Bengals, they're in the AFC North, Texans, Dolphins, and Commanders. Those are the home and the away games. Let's welcome in Tim Bielik from the Plain Dealer as well as cleveland.com. So, Tim, you look at that, there's some marquee games, the Bills away, and you have Tom Brady, Justin Herbert, Bill Belichick and company coming to First Energy Stadium. So it's kind of interesting, some really good quarterbacks out on the lakefront this season.
Schedule and everything in a few days, you know, the when and the where exactly as far as, you know, how the whole thing's going to schedule out, how it's all going to look. But I do think when you look at the schedule, and obviously, you know, the home and away teams, I feel like in a way, the Browns kind of have a more favorable schedule, and that their toughest non-AFC North games are going to be at home. And outside of the Bills, I mean, you got the Chargers coming to Cleveland, the Patriots coming to Cleveland, Tom Brady and the Bucks coming to Cleveland, the Saints coming to Cleveland. When you look at the away, really the only other the toughest game by far outside of the three division games is Buffalo. And I mean, that's a tough opponent to play no matter where you play them, but especially, you know, in Buffalo. Up there in Orchard Park, it's going to be crazy. But that's really the only tough non-division road game they have. So in a way, it's a little more favorable, which is good news for the Browns.
Yeah, and the schedule is not stacked with the elite of the elite quarterbacks like it was a season ago. I know you get Josh Allen, I know you get Tom Brady, and I know you get Justin Herbert. But it seems like there was about 8 of those games last year as opposed to the 3 or 4 that you have this season. Let's turn our attention to the draft. Browns trade down from 44, don't pick until the 3rd round. What were you thinking when that was going through and when that was occurring during the draft?
I wouldn't say I was surprised by a trade down. I kind of figured, you know, that's in the Andrew Berry mode of operations is, you know, trading down when possible to accrue picks. I was kind of surprised he traded out of the 2nd round entirely, because you look at, you know, some of the players who went off the board after he traded down. John Mechie went 44 of the Texans. George Pickens 52nd, Alec Pierce 53rd, Sky Moore 54th, Drake Jackson 61st, just to name a few. And those were all guys Andrew Berry passed on. I think it was pretty clear, you know, based on that it was more about the corners that were there than the receivers that were there. And you know, based on, you know, what Andrew Berry said after the draft, you know, the reporting Mary Kay Cabot did after the draft, and, you know, the leaked sheet of the guardrails that have been out for years and years and years, that maybe we should have thought more about cornerback earlier than we did. And it's clear, obviously, based on how they operated, that's kind of where they went. You know, much of dismay of people that kind of wanted them to take that, you know, game-breaking receiver that could have been there, that they could have had at 44. But, you know, considering they were able to use those picks on Perion Winfrey and Cade York, I think the Browns got pretty good value out of that.
Overall, what'd you think of the draft when you look at it as a whole? What kind of pops out? What comes to mind for you?
I kind of figured it wasn't the sexiest draft by far. You're not going to have one of those when you don't have a pick in the first 2 rounds. So you're kind of hoping to get some depth pieces. Obviously, you know, 5 picks within the 3rd and 4th rounds. They did a solid job there. You know, the Martin Emerson pick was the one I was most curious with. I think the Troy Hill trade made that a little more palatable, knowing that Emerson may carve a bigger role, you know, as a rookie than I originally thought, although I think he's more of a perimeter-only corner. And I thought, honestly, you know, after that pick, I thought the picks got better and better. I thought out of those first 5, Alex Wright, I really like, is a guy who has starter upside and has a really good frame. I think he can play at least a little bit right now, but ideally you want to maybe work him in slowly, get him coached up a little more, and hopefully in a year or two you have a starter opposite Myles Garrett, who's another imposing physical player. 99, David Bell. I know that was a favorite for a lot of Browns fans. I like the pick. I mean, it's one of those where you trust tape over, athletic traits and whatever. I mean, I know there's people saying, oh, it could be like Jarvis Landry. And, after rewatching some David Bell, I kind of agree with that, there's some ability. And I forget where I saw this, but there was also something about how they tracked David Bell on a GPS, and he got up to about 21 miles an hour on the field. So maybe he's just a guy that's faster on the field than he is, in shorts and a T-shirt running on a turf field. So there's a lot to like about David Bell's game. Obviously, Perion Winfrey in the 4th round, steal, should have been a second rounder. And then Cade York, 124. Hopefully the Browns, they finally got the kicker they were going for. I know some people are questioning that. I don't know why. I mean, everybody knew the Browns needed a kicker. They were the team that needed one more than anybody, and they got the guy who was clearly the best one in the draft. So, with the picks they kind of had at the top, I thought they did a good job. It kind of petered out towards the end, but as I kind of sat there and watched the rest of the draft unfold after the 6th round, I think you were just kind of throwing darts at the dartboard. There really wasn't much that stood out as really exciting, or a player that, a team pick, you're like, oh my goodness, this was a guy I thought would have been a steal or whatever. There really wasn't one of those this year. I thought that would have made sense for the Browns.
Now, I know you kind of looked at all of them. Let's go through the draft grades for the AFC North. And it looks like you thought everybody pretty much helped themselves and did a pretty nice job in the draft. Whose draft did you like the best?
Baltimore. I mean, they just do this year in and year out. They just get studs to just reload on this football team. And I mean, obviously you start at the top, that 14th pick, Kyle Hamilton. I mean, I thought he was one of the 3 most talented players in this entire draft. Slides because, safety is not necessarily considered as important a position as some of the others. I think safety is a criminally underrated position. And Kyle Hamilton is a guy that I've termed as a unicorn because he's an incredible athlete. He's great in both phases, run game and against the pass. And he's just going to be a problem for, the Browns and the rest of the AFC North for years to come. Then Tyler Linderbaum, the center from Iowa, I thought they needed to keep working on the offensive line. That's a good pick. And then, just you go down the line into day 2 into day 3. David Ajabo, Travis Jones, Daniel Falele, Jalen Armour-Davis, Charlie Kohler, Jordan Stout, Isaiah Lakely. I mean, they just hit after hit after hit. It's sensational how good it looks on paper. Obviously, it has to play out on the field. I mean, we've seen, Baltimore have some great drafts. Not all those guys hit, but you're never going to hit all the time. But, on paper, Baltimore looks like it's done a really good job reloading this football team.
Yeah, the one thing I wonder about the Ravens, there's a lot of pressure now on their number 1 pick from last year, Rashad Bateman, to come through after they traded Hollywood Brown away. All right, Steelers you like too. You like the job the Steelers did as well?
Yeah, I mean, I may be more positive on Kenny Pickett than most people. I think I'm not as scared off by the small hands, I think, as some people were. He may not have as high a ceiling as Malik Willis, which kind of kept me from making this an A-plus draft. If it was Willis, to me, it would have been an A-plus grade because Willis could have probably sat for 2022 behind Mitch Trubisky. With Pickett, he might be in the mix of star right away. He has a higher floor, I think, than Malik Willis, just not as high a ceiling, which, I think that's kind of what made the pick a little bit of a head scratcher. But for me, what won the draft for the Steelers and why I gave them that grade, their next 3 picks. George Pickens at 52. I know there's character concerns with Pickens, which probably caused him to slide as far as he did. I mean, if there weren't those questions, he probably would have gone as early as, the first rounds of the Packers, I would presume. But, he falls to the Steelers at 52. That is a steal and a half. 3rd round, DeMarvin Leal, the defensive lineman from Texas A&M. I like his athleticism. He's got very good potential. I think just needs to kind of develop more production. I think playing with a veteran group will do that in the 4th round. Calvin Austin, I mean, my goodness, just speed for days with that guy. I know he's smaller. I know he's an older prospect, but he is as fast as they were in this draft.
All right, you also gave the Bengals a B. All right, let's take a look at this. So this is a tweet from the guy we talked about a little bit earlier, Browns pick in the 3rd round. Martin Emerson going to wear number 23 as somebody put the jersey switch on for him, and Emerson wearing Joe Hayden's old number. So pretty good lineage with 23 in the cornerback. And let's take a look at some of the numbers that we see from 2021. This is from the Hottest Take tweet. 51.1 completion percentage against allowed, 3 touchdowns, 78.8 coverage grade. All pretty good things. And keep in mind, this is a guy that's playing in the SEC against the Alabamas of the world with all those elite wide receivers. He actually played pretty well against Crimson Tide. When you kind of see what you've seen against Emerson, what the Browns get in that corner?
I think they got another guy who could be a pretty good weapon on the outside, provide some depth in case Denzel Ward and Greg Newsome get hurt. I mean, we know those guys have had injury questions, Ward more so in the NFL than Newsome. But I think, over time, that pick has really started to make more sense. And, the mantra in the NFL, I think, just like with offensive linemen, you can't have enough corners, especially in the AFC, where you got to deal with Joe Burrow twice a year. If you want to get to the Super Bowl, you got to get past guys like Josh Allen, Justin Herbert, Patrick Mahomes, just to name a few. I mean, this AFC is so good at throwing the football and has such really good passing games that you have maybe 3 to even 5 really good corners that you can throw on the field at any time. That gives you a good chance to match up. And we know Joe Woods, as the defensive coordinator, he loves to go with those multiple defensive backs, 5, sometimes 6, 3 safeties on the field. He loves to go with those DBs. So it makes sense. And I know the knock with Martin Emerson is maybe he doesn't get a lot of interceptions. I think he only had 1 in his collegiate career, but you don't have to get a lot of interceptions to affect an opponent's passing game. I think obviously he's got length, he's got height, which is really good for a corner. And as long as he gets a hand in and disrupts the pass, I mean, that's the ultimate outcome is you want to just have as many incompletions or try and take a receiver away as much as you can. So I think from that standpoint, Emerson, I think, delivers those things. It's going to be interesting to see how he continues to develop those ball skills in the next few years.
Tim Bielik from the Plain Dealer, as well as cleveland.com, and I are going to step aside, take a quick time out. Other side of the break, we'll flip sides of the ball, talking a little offense, and in particular, running back and wide receiver. Sports for CLE will be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
When it comes to selling you a mattress, most retailers are handing you a line. A long line of extra steps that drive up costs and create confusion. At the Original Mattress Factory, we simplify the mattress shopping experience by building mattresses and box springs in our own local factories and selling them direct to you. It's short, sweet, and simply makes sense. So experience more than just the mattress store. Experience an original, the Original Mattress Factory.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to OhioLottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine. Tim Bielik from the Plain Dealer and cleveland.com, and I continue talking Browns football. Time to head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. This one about the running back situation with the Browns.
Hi, Dave and the gang. This is Matt from Canada calling from up north. I just wanted to talk about the running back room. Everybody you talk to says 5's too many. We've got too many for the team. But bear with me. We don't have a fullback anymore, and we've shrunk our tight end room, so that gives us a couple slots. And for years, people have been talking about how we can get Chubb and Hunt on the field together. With 5 guys, that gives us rotational pieces for both of them and potentially allows us to get our strongest weapons on the field at the same time. Plus, with dual running back sets and plays deep into the playbook, I think that gives a unique look to defenses that aren't prepared to deal with that while giving us enough depth to possibly rotate guys in and out. What do you guys think about giving up on the fullback and the tight end position in order to have 5 running backs in the room and have multiple running back sets in this year's offense? Love the content, guys, and go Browns.
As always, appreciate all of the voicemails. I'll defer to you for the first answer to that question. What are your thoughts on that, Tim?
5 running backs is obviously a lot to have. With Jerome Ford being drafted in the 5th round, I got to assume of some of those other guys, he's the most likely to stick around just because, you want to at least see what he's got before you kind of make a decision if he's going to be part of the future, unless he really just does not look good in training camp. As for the rest, it's going to be interesting to see how it kind of plays out. They're saying Demetric Felton is going to kind of stick as a running back. I kind of think he's more just kind of like a receiver back hybrid option, maybe at his best. And he really hit that rookie wall hard last season after a promising start. So there's that concern there. Dearness Johnson, still kind of technically not on the team. I know he's a restricted free agent, so it's unclear what's going to happen there. And Kareem Hunt, I think just from a money perspective, I don't know if he's back in 2023 just because, again, you got so much money tied up in Nick Chubb. You're going to have to dish out a ton of money, out of the cap to Deshaun Watson, Myles Garrett, Denzel Ward. So that might be a financial decision. I couldn't tell you right now which of those last 3 guys, would be for sure would be around. I think if you were to trade in them, Kareem Hunt would get you by far the most value. But, it's going to come down to training camp and obviously, who looks good, who doesn't look good. And if Andrew Berry can get value for, any of those guys, I can't imagine they would carry 5 backs into training camp, especially even if they don't have that traditional fullback, or that 3rd tight end that they want to have.
Well, the other thing would be if you're going to keep a 5th running back, he better be one of your standouts on special teams. And he's not going to be returning kicks because that's going to be Jakeem Grant, at least punts. So the tail end of your skill position groups usually are your stars of special teams. And I just don't know if any of those running backs translate to special teams. That would be something that would swing it in their favor. You mentioned Kareem Hunt. What type of year do you think he has with Deshaun Watson as quarterback, and do you think the way they use Hunt gets affected by that?
I think it's in for an interesting year. Maybe, carries get cut down because I would imagine with Deshaun Watson now, they'll lean more into the pass because you have a quarterback who has that ability to be one of the better throwers in the NFL. He's already put up very good numbers with a subpar supporting cast like he did in Houston 2 years ago. With Kareem Hunt, I'm fascinated to see how that kind of plays out. It's got a lot of potential for him to be involved more in, in the pass game. Some read options with him and Deshaun Watson will be interesting to see if especially if they want to involve him and install some RPOs into the pass game. There's certainly many ways you can use Kareem Hunt creatively, maybe more so than Nick Chubb because Hunt is a better, pass catcher than Chubb. So I think in that regard, maybe 3rd downs, he's got a bigger role, especially in those situations when you don't know whether the run or the pass is coming. So we know how creative Kevin Stefanski is going to be, and especially, with a quarterback at Deshaun Watson's caliber, how much more willing I think he'd be to, utilize more pass concepts, knowing that he has a quarterback that, not only has the arm to make those kind of big throws when you need him, but he can also use his legs. And I'm sure, adding Kareem Hunt in there just gives defenses another thing to worry about. If it's like 3rd and 2 or whatever for midfield, when you put Kareem Hunt in the backfield next to Deshaun Watson in the shotgun, you really have no idea what's coming. So you kind of have to prepare for everything. Kind of gives you a bit of unpredictability. And, Kevin Stefanski at his best can be very unpredictable as a play caller.
So NFL.com's Chad Reuter had favorite picks from each of the rounds. Browns showed up in several of them. So the 3rd round, his 2nd favorite pick of the 3rd round was David Bell, the wide receiver who went 99 overall. In the 4th round, his 2nd favorite pick was Perion Winfrey, 108 overall. We've talked about him. 7th round, again, 2nd favorite pick, Isaiah Thomas. And Thomas, played with Perrion Winfrey and Nick Benito, and a lot of people think he might kind of be undervalued. When you look at especially Isaiah Thomas, what do you think of that one, Tim?
Well, from what I saw about Isaiah Thomas, looking up to the draft and even kind of when the Browns picked him, maybe a guy that should have gone in round 6, maybe even round 5. I think, maybe he kind of fell there because he doesn't have the high upside that, Nick Benito has, that Alex Wright has, as far as edge rushers. Maybe his ceiling is only so high, but, as a floor, I think he's at least good enough to be in a rotation. Production was important. And obviously at that point, you're either looking for elite traits or very good production. And I think Thomas kind of falls in that latter category where, I would imagine he can carve out some kind of role. I don't know if he'll ever be a starter in the NFL, but I could see him as a guy that you kind of throw out there, when Myles Garrett needs a breather or when somebody else needs a breather and you just want fresh legs in the pass game, or even if you kick one of those big defensive ends inside and then Thomas can be on the outside. So there's some interesting things you can do. And I mean, obviously with the fact that the Browns went for 2 defensive ends in this class, they showed that they really want to kind of keep that stable deep and fresh so that, Myles doesn't have to play 50 to 60 snaps every game, that they can kind of keep his reps down a little bit and save him more for the end of the season when they're going to really need him.
All right, so another guy that was on that list is David Bell, and Kevin Cole tweeted this. It's a comparison chart for David Bell, and you see draft position, age as a rookie, height, weight, some of the skill measurements, and as far as the vertical and the 40 time, and then the yards, touchdowns, max yards per reception. So he compares to Keenan Allen. Pretty good if you get Keenan Allen. Jarvis Landry on that chart, Robert Woods, Juju Smith-Schuster. So those are some of the big names. You kind of hope it's not more like Laquan Treadwell or Doss or Kelly, who kind of never caught on. But when you look at that, if they find a Keenan Allen or a Jarvis Landry or a Robert Woods, they really got something with David Bell. It's a very interesting chart when you look at the comparisons there.
Yeah, and obviously David Bell fell because he didn't have that really good combine. I mentioned, the GPS tracking, that it seems like teams are using that more. And again, I think it was at least one that clocked him about 21 miles an hour. So he does have speed. I think it shows up more on the football field, more so than the testing. And I know some people want to make the comparison to Cooper Kupp. I don't think they could be more wrong, because I think as much as people look at speed and they're similar, go look at Cooper Kupp's workout and look at the agility numbers he put up. Those were absolutely sensational. And I think that's the thing that gets overlooked is, he may not have been super fast, but he was tested out incredibly well in agility, particularly in the 3-cone, which I think it's so underrated that I think it needs to get talked about more. And Bell really didn't test well in any of those categories, but when you look at what he does on the field, what he lacks in top end speed, he kind of makes up for with savvy. And I think that's interesting to see is when I've seen him run routes, all those highlight films, he understands where he needs to be. He understands how to get open. He understands how to sell routes, especially double moves, I should say, where he knows how to sell it. He knows how to make a defender think he's going one way and then goes right the other way. And out routes, he understands, you got to sell it up and then make that quick cut to the outside, make it a sharp cut. And even on a deep route, he knows how to steal a defender off. I forget what game it was. It might have been Notre Dame, where he got behind one of the defenders and kind of kept the corner on his back hip. So the quarterback, he can put the ball in a position where either Bell makes the catch or nobody makes the catch. So he's got an understanding of that. And I think that can make up for, not having those athletic traits that, some of the other receivers who went before him did. I think he can be productive from day one. His ceiling, I'm not sure if he can be Keenan Allen, like you said, or if he can even be like Robert Woods or Juju Smith-Schuster or Jarvis Landry. Andrew Berry will have nailed this pick, I think.
Tim Bielik and I going to step aside, take a quick time out. Other side of the break, we talk about some of the steals, who people are saying the Browns drafted as steals of the draft. Sports for CLE, be right back. Stay with us. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine. We continue talking Browns with Tim Bielik from cleveland.com and the Plain Dealer. So this is from Senior Bowl workout. Let's take a look. It is Isaiah Thomas, Browns' 7th-round pick against Cole Strange, first-round pick of the Patriots. And, Isaiah Thomas won that. So, again, one workout move, but it shows you some quickness and multiple moves there, too. There's a little bit of hand move and a swim move. So all pretty good stuff when you look at that, Tim Bielik.
Yeah, I mean, this is the first-round pick he went up against, although I thought Cole Strange was probably more of a day 2 guy, possibly a 3rd-round pick, but still ended up in the first round, and Isaiah Thomas looked really good on there. And I think that rush, I think the first time I saw that, I was visibly impressed. I'm like, whoa, because, that's something significant. I mean, we know, I think, as much as people want to talk down like the combine, the importance of it, I think the Senior Bowl maybe is underrated as far as importance, because it's a chance for guys to go head to head in these certain sessions and where guys can make money for themselves, especially, how they perform in the workouts. And I think this is a good thing to see for Browns fans, so they can kind of get an idea of some of the things Isaiah Thomas can bring in certain capacities in the pass rush game. Yeah,
and again, he's combining moves, which that's. When a 7th rounder does that, usually there's going to be some good things that you can build on with that. So the 33rd team, it's comprised of former NFL executives, 33rd team website, 33rdteam.com. The 5 biggest day 3 steals of the NFL draft. And the first one they list is Perrion Winfrey. He was their 4th defensive tackle entering the draft. We've already heard he has become Cleveland's favorite hype man in the week after the draft. But again, you and I have talked about it. If they would have taken him in the 2nd or 3rd round, I've been happy with that pick.
Yeah, I mean, that's an absolute steal. I kept thinking going into day 3, there's no reason Perrion Winfrey should have lasted past day 2. I mean, I know he can run a little hot and cold. Sometimes he can be inconsistent, especially at the pad level, but when he's on, he's something sensational. I think 11 of his 23 tackles last season went for a loss, and there were also clips of him during the Senior Bowl week when he was absolutely dominant. I forget who it was, but he had a very good bull rush where he backed up this offensive line about 6-7 yards off the line of scrimmage. So he's definitely got a lot more power than you think. He's good at shooting the gaps. We saw from his press conferences, got a lot of energy and got a lot of fire. And I think when you talk about defense, you can't have enough of those guys who just kind of it seems like he's kind of like the Energizer Bunny, and just keeps going and going. And anytime you can get those kind of guys that got that extra fire, that extra motivation, that only helps the team. That only helps boost some energy, especially in situations when you need it, because especially now with 17 games, that NFL season becomes much more of a grind. And if you have guys with his energy, with his demeanor, and just the way he plays, it only gets them a little more excited. And, energy matters so much on defense.
So the 2022 draft, best picks by every team. This is from CBSSports.com. So for the Browns, they like edge rusher, 3rd round, 78th overall, Alex Wright. Honorable mention is Dawson Deaton, the center, who went at 245 overall. Talk a little bit about Wright, what you like, and you see these different outlets have the Browns kind of getting steals in each of the rounds. It's a pretty good indication Andrew Berry did okay trading back and accumulating some extra picks. What do you like about Wright from UAB?
He's got tremendous size. I mean, 6'5", about 270-some pounds. It certainly seems like the frame that the Browns have been looking for, kind of at edge rusher. I mean, obviously, Myles Garrett's got that incredible frame. Jadeveon Clowney's not too far behind. with Alex Wright, I think there's a lot of untapped potential with him. I think he's got starter potential. I mean, he's a tremendous athlete. At his best, he could be a game wrecker. I think it's just going to come down to kind of consistency. You know, he's still a young player, still developing. You know, he's only 21 or so years old, so he's still very young in football terms. And obviously, you know, working with a guy like Myles Garrett and, you know, the veterans on this defensive line, especially to get Jadeveon Clowney back. Wright is, I think, a guy who can be in the rotation from day one. You know, you want to see him out there for a few snaps, kind of get his feet wet, kind of get him to understand what he needs to do to win the NFL level, that there's got to be more nuance, that it's not just about winning as a pass rusher, it's in the run game. But he has the tools to be effective in both, and I'm fascinated, you know, what he's able to do from day one, whether he can step on the field right away or he needs a little time, because size is already there. It just kind of comes down to just consistency and technique, which is, you know, a thing most young players I think have to work on.
So voluntary off-season workouts continue in Berea, and the Browns going to give us a little flavor of some of the guys going through the work, trying to get ready. Yeah, guys throwing around some heavy weight. Kettlebell workout coming up. We'll see the leader of the offense, and yeah, there he is, Deshaun Watson, doing his work. Some box jumping going on. Everybody out in Berea, a little pep in their step after they've added some new guys to the squad via the draft and undrafted free agents, but everybody getting ready for it. And again, a lot of expectations. There's Jedrick Wills going after it. A lot of expectations that, again, this is a very good roster.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of guys that are going to have something they want to prove after, you know, the team had a record below 500 a year ago. They missed the playoffs. You know, there were Super Bowl expectations for this team, and they didn't even get into the playoffs. So there's obviously going to be a lot they have to prove this year. And I think it's obviously good for the Browns that a lot of those guys, you know, are in the building right now for these preseason workouts, trying to build some camaraderie, some chemistry, you know, before they really hit the field and go through the actual football work and, you know, the next few weeks and months with mandatory minicamp or OTAs, training camp, you name it. The earlier you can get a start on that kind of stuff as far as building camaraderie, the better. And I think based on, you know, everything we've seen so far, that seems to me like that's going to be a point of emphasis, is getting these guys to gel earlier so that they don't have to really don't really have to worry about any of that during the season. Of course, there are a lot of new pieces, particularly with the addition of Deshaun Watson. So the earlier they can kind of create the chemistry, the better.
Tim Bielik and I are going to step aside, take one more time out, other side of the break. Some dominoes left to fall. We'll take a look at what could be next for the Browns, and also Baker Mayfield. What's going on with him? Sports4CLE, be right back. Stay with us.
When it comes to selling you a mattress, most retailers are handing you a long line of extra steps that drive up costs and create confusion. At the Original Mattress Factory, we simplify the mattress shopping experience by building mattresses and box springs in our own local factories and selling them direct to you. It's short, sweet, and simply makes sense. So experience more than just the mattress store. Experience an original, the Original Mattress Factory.
Tim Bielik and I continue talking Browns. So this is from the Bleacher Report. Dominoes left to fall, and basically for the Browns, do Jadeveon Clowney and Jarvis Landry return to the Browns? And Tim, when I look at that, I think Clowney is likely, and I think Jarvis Landry becomes less and less likely.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think obviously with the addition of David Bell, I feel like Jarvis Landry kind of becomes more redundant since they're pretty similar players. With Clowney, it's, you know, a much different story because, I mean, I know they drafted Alex Wright. They acquired Chase Winovich in the offseason, but I don't think those guys are starting guys, at least not right now in the case of Wright. Winovich, I think, is kind of a rotational guy right now. Wright is a guy that has starter potential, but he needs time. He's not ready, I think, to step into that day one. And I think, you know, if the Browns kind of, you know, let him grow along slowly, that's going to be the best thing for him. So to me, obviously, it's going to be more important that they get to Davian Clowney back, that they keep him around for at least another year, maybe 2 years. And, he was very good last year. We saw just how much he complimented Myles Garrett on the other side of that defensive front. They were tough together. They were fun to watch together. So, I mean, it's going to be imperative, I think, just for the defense and for creating a pass rush that they're able to bring Clowney back.
Yeah, I would agree wholeheartedly. We're going to head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. This one of our frequent viewers has an unconventional idea and destination for Baker Mayfield.
Hi, Sports4CLE and all my fellow Cleveland friends and all my peeps on the chat. This is Guitar Chic, and I actually have been thinking about something sincerely for a landing spot for Baker Mayfield. And I think it is reasonable and logical. How about the Miami Dolphins? Now, this is the reason I'm thinking this. The Miami Dolphins have Tua Tagovailoa. I hope I said that right. And this guy, yeah, they're putting the chips all in, it seems, this year. But I don't believe they're any more confident in his abilities than the Browns were with Baker. But this is where I think Baker differs from Tua. Number one, he's proven to be more durable until this season. He had that freak injury on an ill-advised tackle, but he's a competitor. He's been through 4 systems. He's proven he can learn different systems. He has more experience than Tua, and he has a better arm than Tua. Arguing about the running ability, I think Baker runs well enough to escape. He's proven that in the past. He will be healthy for the start of the season. It wasn't his throwing arm, and I really think he deserves a second chance, and he can be a decent quarterback in the NFL. And I hope that he does get an opportunity like this. Even if he sat as a backup to Tua, who knows if Tua is going to play well enough to stick at the starting position or stay healthy. Baker could have a definite opportunity there, if not even to beat him out in training camp.
As always, we appreciate all of the voicemails. And let's take a look. This is from Bova as the odds of where Baker Mayfield is week 1. And right now, the overwhelming favorite, your Cleveland Browns, minus 220. Panthers plus 275. Seahawks plus 290. Texans plus 650. Falcons plus 1,500. Tim, the Dolphins is an interesting one. I think they're trying to get a read on Tua. That's the reason you go out and you get Tyreek Hill and you put all those assets around him. Tua's a lot like Baker. If you put the right pieces around him, I think he's going to be successful.
Yeah, and don't forget that they have a new head coach as well. Mike McDaniel comes from, the 49ers, the Kyle Shanahan coaching tree. So I would imagine, based on that alone, they're kind of interested to see how Tua would do in this offense. But it's not an odd fit. I think it really is interesting, if you think about it, because Miami's not sold on Tua. They may have too much talent to be in a position to get a guy like C.J. Stroud or Bryce Young in next year's draft when the quarterback class is going to be so much superior compared to this past draft, 2022. And we still don't know quite what Tua is. I mean, he's shown flashes, but he hasn't looked like the guy we saw at Alabama when he was, just absolutely dominant for about 2 seasons before he got hurt. And he was never the same in Alabama when he wasn't healthy. So, which, of course, sounds familiar to what's happened with Baker Mayfield. When Baker's been injured, he hasn't been the same player when healthy. So maybe there is some similarity, I guess, to that. But Baker's proven more, I think, in the NFL than Tua. And I think if Miami were to trade for Baker, I think that would be kind of an indictment on Tua. Because, again, remember, they had a chance to take Justin Herbert as well. Justin Herbert's on the board. They chose Tua. Imagine how different this Dolphins team would be with Justin Herbert, plus the defense they already have now, and especially if they added Tyreek Hill, all of a sudden the Bills would not be the favorite in the AFC East that they are right now.
Yeah, and again, it's just an interesting dynamic. There's some skill with the Dolphins that would play to Baker's strength. So it's just an interesting perspective, very interesting thought. Don't know that it will happen, but keep bringing those ideas. Those are interesting ideas, and that's what we want to talk about. All right, CBSSports.com, NFL quarterback tiers. So tier 2, top pros, proven winners. Matt Ryan and the Browns' Deshaun Watson. So that's how high that is. Now, as an exercise here, Tier 6, Mayfield was in this a season ago. This year it's Goff, Wentz, Locke, Daniel Jones, Justin Fields, Marcus Mariota, Sam Darnold, Mitch Trubisky. So you got Goff with the Lions, Wentz with the Commanders, Locke with the Seahawks, Jones with the Giants, Field with the Bears, Mariota with the Falcons, Darnold with the Panthers, Trubisky with the Steelers. I'm taking Baker Mayfield over all of those guys with the exception of Justin Fields, just because I don't know what Justin Fields is just yet. But I'd rather have him than Goff, Wentz, Luck, probably Jones, Darnold, and Mitch Trubisky.
Same here. I mean,
yeah, I see. You look at it as like, and if you're Baker Mayfield, you're going, really? I'm having trouble becoming a starter?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's so much about him as, just the fact that, these starting spots are also filled, and the other factor is I don't think it's also just the money. I know $18.9 million is a lot of money, but also the fact that it's an expiring contract. I mean, with quarterbacks, I don't think you necessarily want an expiring deal. I mean, if you know he's going to be around for a couple of years, then I think it probably makes it easier for a team to have been willing to kind of make that move to get Baker Mayfield. But I'm kind of with you. I would take him, over all those guys, except for Justin Fields. And I mean, we don't know what Justin Fields is. It's possible we may not get much of an idea this year because the Bears, kind of dropped the ball as far as getting him receiver help. I mean, they didn't really get much receiver help. They passed on that position with both their second round picks, and they took a guy in Velus Jones who is 25 years old and had far and away his best season. I think in 2021, I think it was only about 600 yards receiving. So he didn't have a lot of production. He was old. And now all of a sudden he's going to have a ton of pressure being Justin Fields' new weapon alongside Darnell Mooney. So we don't know how good Justin Fields can be. And that's for Deshaun Watson. I could see kind of where he fits in, maybe in tier 2, at least right now. He's going to be rusty to start the season, because he hasn't played in a year and he's going to be learning a new system. He's got to get used to new receivers, all that stuff. I wouldn't be surprised if he struggles out of the gate. If he doesn't look like himself, the first 2-3 games, I think I would understand that. I think Browns fans should have a little more patience and not expect that Deshaun Watson is going to come out lighting the world on fire at quarterback. That may take a little bit more time than some might expect. So just give it time and kind of judge him, in October and November rather than what he does in September.
Tim Bielik, as always, appreciate the time and the insight. Great stuff, Tim. Thanks very much.
Got it. Thanks for having me, guys. Have a good day.
You too, Tim Bielik. Make sure you read them, Pages of the Plain Dealer, as well as cleveland.com. We're going to step aside, take a quick time out. We continue talking Browns, especially Andrew Berry's draft. Mac Robinson from 92.3 The Fan. Straight ahead on Sports4CLE. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
I am powerful beyond my wildest imagination.
I will define my future.
I will keep challenging myself to improve.
Because I am a future leader of this great nation.
I will be responsible for raising a beautiful family.
And educating not only my generation, but many more to come.
I will make a difference in my community.
And I will stand up for what I believe in.
I will not settle for simply chasing my dreams. I will achieve them.
Because I was given a chance.
An opportunity.
A home.
At Family, Career, and Community Leaders of America.
The ultimate leadership experience.
FCCLA has been one of the greatest experiences of my life.
It's made me who I am today.
Join us We'll build a new future together.
We continue talking Browns here on Sports for CLE. Let's welcome in Mac Robinson from 92.3 The Fan. Mac, when you look at this year's draft class from Andrew Berry, what do you see? What does it say, do you think?
Well, Dave, thank you for having me on. I really think that you obviously look at it, especially for the team going forward, but at least here and now. But you look at towards the future, some of the future needs, at least when you look at the quarterback position again, you have somebody like Greedy Williams who is going to be coming up on an expiring contract. You already saw them trade off of somebody like a Troy Hill for a 5th-round pick next year, and really kind of reshuffling that back half of the roster. Obviously, you need more interior defensive line depth. You got that with Perry and Winfrey. You also have somebody, in Isaiah Thomas, who plays the edge rusher role, but also can kick inside a little bit. So he has that that positional versatility as well. You obviously add in a need currently with David Bell, but he's somebody who, can be cost controlled for a little bit. You have some of these players that are going to be coming up under contract, and, being able to add in somebody who is, cost effective in David Bell while also filling that possession type of receiver role. I think that he's somebody who makes a lot of sense. And, especially, Martin Emerson among other players as well. Guys who can develop and grow into those roles when those needs become available. That's how you see teams like the Rams, who, despite, trading off of 1st and 2nd round draft picks, are still able to compete and still able to win a Super Bowl because of the fact that they're able to get those late round draft picks and fill those future needs as the drafts roll in, despite not necessarily having that high end draft capital.
Yeah, I mean, they drafted like they're a contender, and they expect to be one. So that's you mentioned it. That's what contenders do. All right, let's play a game. Say the Browns have to play a game coming up in a couple of days. As you look at this roster, how you feeling?
Dave, I'm feeling pretty good. I'm a little worried about a couple of spots here and there, but, pretty good overall. I'm looking at, about a 6'5", 270-pound hole that's at the edge position there opposite of Myles Garrett, looking at Jadeveon Clowney. But, outside of that, I feel pretty good overall. Maybe you could add one more, true free safety, which, I think that they were truly looking for. I think that somebody like Kirby Joseph of Illinois, I know that they were looking at pretty heavily in the draft. He ends up going to Detroit just 2 picks before the Browns select. But, that's one area where I think that they can still improve. But, again, for the most part, you're not going to have a perfect offseason. You're never going to fill every single one of your needs because there's always something else that you can kind of reach for and something else that you can really find. So, I tend to look at what Andrew Berry and company did this offseason, and I do genuinely think that, for the most part, they're in as good of a spot as they can possibly be in. You have depth at running back. Obviously, you added in some receivers, which I do think the receiving position is a little bit underrated going into this year. I know not necessarily some of that high-end talent. Maybe add in one more veteran, I guess, in my opinion. But I do think that the crew that they have there's interesting enough names at the back end, especially undrafted free agents like Isaiah Weston, who I think, could potentially make the roster if he ends up having a strong preseason and training camp. But you do have a few guys who really make a lot of sense for the team. And I do think that, again, for where the Browns have been at previously, I do really think that they're in a good spot to be in, especially with Deshaun Watson, Jacoby Brissett, and company in that quarterback room.
Yeah, you would expect that Deshaun Watson makes those wide receivers that were here last year a little bit better, and Amari Cooper gives you an elite one. Let's take a look at this. Mike Clay tweets out the positional unit grades. So the unit grades for everybody. When you look at the roster as a whole, Browns 11th ranked offense, 14th ranked defense, 10th best overall roster, 6th best in the AFC. Now, when you look at the Browns across the board there, the ones in blue are the concerns. Wide receivers 0.6 and defensive interior line 0.1. I think Winfrey would make a difference there, but again, no surprise. Those are the two areas that are of concern. Running back, that's 4 out of 4. Cornerback, 3.9 out of 4. and they're on the upper half of the quarterback spectrum there with a 2.6. So you look at that, and we've mentioned wide receiver, and let's take a look at some of the veteran wide receivers that are still out there. You see the name Jarvis Landry. We've heard him kind of associated with the Ravens a little bit, with the Titans. I think it becomes less and less likely that Jarvis Landry is coming back. Your thoughts on that, and who on this list intrigues you that you might want to bring in as that veteran wide receiver that Andrew Berry adds?
You know, one, when it comes to Jarvis Landry, Dave, I tend to agree with you. I do think that with every passing day that we don't see Jarvis Landry sign with the Cleveland Browns, I think it's more and more likely that he's not going to come back. And I don't think that, that's a disservice to Jarvis Landry or a disrespect, an act of disrespect by the Browns. I just think that, he played well in Cleveland, and I just think that the time for both sides to separate, I think it's now. I think that it makes sense for both sides. And, once the David Bell pick came in, that's when I really thought, David Bell really separates very well. Obviously, didn't necessarily test well when it came to the 40 time, but at the same time had a very good, 10-yard split, had a good 3-cone as well in short shuttle. So, he has the agility that you want, and he showed on tape that he's able to separate very well and be that top-end receiver. Do I think that he's a number one? No. Do I think the Browns need him to be? Also, no. I think that he is exactly what Browns fans thought Rashard Higgins was going to be, which is somebody who can be a reliable possession type of receiver who runs good routes and is actually able to separate at the wide receiver position. So I do think that among all of those, I think David Bell is going to fill that type of a role and can be that in the slot, whether it be in the slot or on the outside. I think that he can fill that role. As for some veterans that I think the Browns could look towards, two names stuck out to me. One is more familiar with Deshaun Watson than the other, and I'll start with him first. I think that Will Fuller is somebody who has dealt with injuries in the past, and I think that he can be brought in on a deal that maybe is more incentive-based. Maybe bring him in, and if he's able to perform like he has in the past with Deshaun Watson, then great. He can earn a little bit more money. But I think that he's somebody who I have a little bit of caution with when it comes to his injury history, as well as bringing him in, depending on the price tag for him. The other one is a bigger name, but fans might not necessarily be as on board with this one, but I'm going to say Julio Jones. I think he's somebody who is a big-bodied receiver. And I think that he's as athletic as he was when he came out in 2011? No, I'm not saying that at all. But what I'm saying is that he is somebody who can allow for some of these players like Anthony Schwartz at the back end of the receiver room, even Donovan Peoples-Jones. They don't have to take that immediate step. They can grow with Deshaun Watson. They can form that rapport, and they can build from there. And so, combining all of that with the knowledge that you have from a Julio Jones, I think you mix all of that together, and I think you got a really good recipe for an underrated wide receiver room, especially.
Julio Jones. Mac Robinson and I are going to step aside, take a quick time out. Other side of the break, we take an interesting look. The Browns traded back. If they package that to trade up for a specific player, what would that look like? Sports4CLE takes a look at that when we return. Stay with us. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to OhioLottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students, kindergarten through 12th grade, can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine. We continue talking Browns with Mac Robinson from 92.3 The Fan. This is an interesting tweet from Jack Duffin. Does great work on salary cap. Follow him at Jack Duffin on Twitter. So the Browns traded down. They traded 44 and 99. To trade up, they would have to package that. So if they packaged 44.99, we would have got them in the range to take George Karlaftis. When they traded down, they ended up with Emerson, Wright, Winfrey, and Cade York. So the question I have for you, Mac Robinson, as you look at that, Karlaftis or those four other guys that the Browns ended up with?
So, Dave, I'm going to answer both because I would say I would take the trade up if I didn't know that Jadeveon Clowney was coming back, or I didn't think that Jadeveon Clowney was coming back. But, however, I think that the problem is that I think that with every passing day, I know we talked about it last segment, with every day leading less and less that Jarvis Landry comes back. I think with every passing day, we're getting closer and closer to Jadeveon Clowney coming back to Cleveland. So, I think that if I didn't think that Clowney was coming back, yeah, I'd be all about trading up for Karlaftis. I think that he's going to be a great pro. I think that he's going to make a lot of sense opposite of Frank Clark in Kansas City. But for where the Browns are at this point, again, they've already traded away multiple first-round picks. They've already traded away multiple other draft picks as well, and they're going to have to start paying Deshaun Watson. You need to keep those future draft picks under your belt, and especially utilizing those to take somebody like a Martin Emerson, who, in listening to vast former corners talk about his stuff from Mississippi State, he's somebody who stands out, has all the physical tools. So for somebody like him to fall to you in the third round, develop him for a year, allow him to start getting that playing time next year, all of a sudden then you're filling that need. Alex Wright can kind of take that Tack McKinley type of third down pass rushing specialist type of role. I think that makes a lot of sense. Perion Winfrey makes a lot of sense on the interior of your defensive line, which, Field Yates even put it at a 0.1 as you showed last segment. So again, even with that kind of an addition, you're still in that bottom tier. You're in the basement of the league when it comes to that position. And then obviously you haven't had a kicker in Cleveland since Phil Dawson. So, at this point, I think it comes down to, filling those other needs around the team to get you to that Super Bowl aspirations to fill up that back end of the roster.
Yeah, you stole my answer. My answer was if Clowney signs, I'd take the 4. If Clowney didn't, I would have traded up for Karlaftis. So, yep, you stole my answer. Good job. All right.
Great minds think alike.
4 reasons the 4th-round pick was a prudent investment in a kicker, Cade York. This is from Sports Illustrated. First, money. Second, draft class. Third, roster. And 4th, impact. And, Mac, we kind of watched all Browns games closely. And if you didn't think they needed a kicker, you weren't watching closely enough.
Yeah, you're not wrong. And that's why, we've been talking about this for the last 2 years at least. Yeah. And, Cody Parkey being the main one 2 years ago. Then this past year, you thought you had something in Chase Mclaughlin early on in the season. You thought that he had it down. I know I tweeted it. So, hey, go to his charge over here. But, again, I look at that position in particular. And, I was somebody who didn't want to necessarily invest in the position. But you're at a point now where every single point matters. And especially last year, you didn't necessarily have a kicker that you were super confident in. And on top of that, you had a coach that tried to get over aggressive. And when he wasn't trying to go for it on 4th down, wasn't as confident in that. And he still had Baker Mayfield, who had his struggles last year. So if you're going to go ahead and make sure that you're taking advantage of those opportunities, you need to make sure that you have somebody who can nail those kicks, especially Cade York. Plenty of times last year at LSU ended up knocking off Florida in that massive fog bowl essentially down there in the bayou. So, getting those kinds of experienced kickers, I think it makes a lot of sense. I know Pat McAfee talked about, the spin that he has on his ball. He doesn't have any concerns about Cade York. And not to mention, too, look at every other team in the AFC North. You had Evan McPherson, who, it's been noted as and reported upon by multiple people as well, that the Browns were interested in taking McPherson last year in the 6th round, but ended up getting jumped for him by the Cincinnati Bengals. So what ends up happening? The Browns have to get aggressive because Evan McPherson is in Cincinnati. You have Justin Tucker, who's the greatest kicker of all time in Baltimore. Good luck with that. And then Chris Boswell is in the top 10 for kickers in the NFL. So you're looking at all of these. The Browns have to make a serious investment, whether it be in the 4th round. I understand it. But the fact that you get him under contract for 4 years and he's dirt cheap, I'm all in. I love it.
And he's accurate from long range. He's accurate from over 50, that's Evan McPherson and Tucker's biggest strength. They get in your half of the field and they're a first down away from being in field goal range.
Well, and Dave, look at what happened with the Ravens last year. They were going to lose to the Detroit Lions, and then Justin Tucker nailed a 67-yard field goal because John Harbaugh, was confident enough in him. So, you have that kind of a kicker that you can go ahead and rely on him. Yeah, I'm going to feel confident as hell. Whether or not Deshaun Watson gets the score, if he doesn't, then, hey, guess what? We're confident enough in our kicker. We're good. Go ahead and roll out there. You got it.
Mac Robinson from 92.3 The Fan. As always, great stuff. Appreciate the time. Thanks, Mac.
Of course, Dave. Always love hopping on with you guys. Appreciate the time.
Mac Robinson, make sure you listen to him, 92.3 The Fan. That's going to do it for this edition of Sports for CLE. We will see you back here tomorrow at 4 o'clock. Scheduled guests, Quincy Carrier and Casey Kinnaman from Dog Pound Daily. That's tomorrow, 4 o'clock, Sports for CLE. We'll see you then. Have a great night, everybody.